All right. So all
Yes,
right.
we can hear you.
All right. Thank you
Hi,
so much.
Godfred can hear you.
Great. Great. Hello. So good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Kweku Entry, and I'm from the African Open Data and Internet Research Foundation here in Accra. And we are organizing this digital forum in conjunction with the Global Open Data for Agric and Nutrition. And we are very pleased to host you this afternoon on our digital forum, which we've named the African Digitization Trade in Agriculture and Nutrition. We are very pleased to host all of you, and we have a very exciting program for you today. Today, I'll be co-hosting with my good, fabulous presenter, Angela, also known as Triple A. Hello, Angela.
Hello, bonjour.
Bonjour. So Angela will also be helping us in translating our points made from the various sessions and presentations into French. We couldn't provide the dual mode for the French, so she will also be helping us. So she's a fabulous host, and I'm very privileged to have this panel with her and also share this digital stage with her. Thank you so much, Angela. So without much ado, I'll just give a brief of this session so that we can begin. So basically, we are looking at the Africa that we want. And what we are looking at is that the Africa that we want envisions a continent which is on equal footing with the rest of the world. We all want to progress. We want to have an integrated economy, reliable services, and affordable services. One of the most important things, which is a driving force, is digitization, okay, which offers us opportunities to boost our economies. Quite recently, we have gotten a step further in our African journey, which is coming out of the Africa that we want for the 2063 agenda of the African Union, where we have implemented the African Continental Free Trade Area. And with the setting up of the office, Africa is also looking to improve its trade relations across the continent. We have identified agriculture as one of the main pillars, which is going to be a driving force as much as its value chain and also the nutrition of our citizens all over the continent. And we are also looking at the various linkages with digitization, where we can also see convergence and collaboration. So for this afternoon, we have a very good panel who have enormous experience on Africa and also on digitization, agriculture, nutrition, and convergence. So I'll hand over to Angela for her to do the introductions for us. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kweku Antwi. So I will also address myself in French, as you said, to our francophone audiences who are joining us now. Bienvenue à ce forum virtuel organisé par AODIAF et GODAN. Nous discutons aujourd'hui le thème de la numérisation du commerce africain dans les secteurs de l'agriculture et de la nutrition. Je me nomme Angela Ekwa Assante, alias Triple A, et je suis votre présentatrice et co-modératrice en compagnie de Monsieur Kweku Antwi pour ce webinaire qui ne devra pas durer plus de 2 heures. Nous avons donc aujourd'hui des personnalités très illustres telles que Dr Abebe Haile Gabriel, représentant de la FAO en Afrique, Monsieur Paul Bartel, responsable des données pour la branche d'Afrique de l'Ouest à Servir, professeur Laurette Dubé, Université McGill du Canada, Akinreni Peter Théo, PDG, Africa Rapporteur Network. Nous avons également Monsieur André Lapierrière, directeur exécutif du Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition, GODAN, Mokhtar Yedali, chef de la Société de l'information à l'Union africaine, et enfin, Madame Lissie Ekwa Chirede Cueno de la Fédération du business agricole au Ghana. So again, I was just saying that we have illustrious personalities here today with us, Mr. Dr. Abebe Haile Gabriel, We also have Mr. Paul Bartels, we have Professor Laurette Dubé, we have André Laperrière, Mokhtar Yedali, Lissie de Cueno, and of course, they will be introduced again by our very good co-moderator today, Mr. Kweku Antwi. Just a reminder that the objective of this webinar is to align the African Free Continental Trade Agenda with linkages in the digitization
where is your face mask?
and agriculture value chain in Africa. Kindly please mute your microphone, Mr. Godfred Frempong. Please mute your microphone. Kindly mute your microphone.
Okay.
Everyone who is not speaking has to mute their microphones. Thank you very much for assuring that this program goes on very smoothly. The objectives of this webinar are to develop a guidance policy for the Digital Africa Agriculture Trade Policy Guide, to also advance open data principles across African nutrition and agriculture value chain. En effet, la numérisation offre de nouvelles opportunités pour stimuler l'économie grâce au commerce électronique, réduire les formalités administratives et réduire les coûts commerciaux grâce au gouvernement électronique et à la numérisation des services publics, sauter les étapes et participer à la 4e révolution de l'industrialisation. Ce potentiel est encore plus grand pour les pays en développement sans littoral, les PDSL. Malgré ces opportunités, il existe plusieurs limitations auxquelles les pays africains continuent de faire face, dont certains sont liés à l'infrastructure actuelle, aux fossés numériques et technologiques. Par exemple, selon les chiffres communiqués par l'Union internationale de télécommunications, en 2017, seulement 21,8% des Africains ont accès à Internet. Dans ce contexte, une question clé se pose. Que signifie le commerce numérisé pour le secteur agricole en Afrique? Le concept de ce webinaire repose donc sur une adoption des technologies nécessaires pour stimuler la croissance économique agricole, puisque le commerce numérique des produits agricoles africains, des semences à l'assiette, offre une grande variété d'opportunités essentielles au succès des villes et des nations. Non seulement nous serons en mesure de contrôler les maladies des plantes et des humains grâce à la science biologique, mais nous fournirons également une nutrition qui permet une vie saine et des personnes en bonne santé tout en maintenant l'intégrité environnementale pour les générations à naître. Accueillons donc le président de l'AODIRF, M. Wisdom Donkor, afin qu'il nous souhaite la bienvenue à ce webinaire. I wish to welcome Mr. Wisdom Donkor, President of the Africa Open Data and Internet Research Foundation, for his welcome address. Please, Mr. Wisdom Donkor, if you are here with us, do unmute yourself and share the address. Thank you.
Hello, Angela, can you hear me?
Yes, please, clearly, loud and clear.
Yes, yes. This morning I had lights out, and I'm speaking to you from my phone. I hope everybody hears me loud and clear. Yes, thank you all for making the time to join us on this very important webinar. Yes, looking at this year, the situation in which we are in, COVID-19, a lot of challenges has arise. And for us to be able to solve these challenges, especially within the agri sector, it looks like our food securities, we have to look at it critically. And also, if we are to succeed with the continental free trade area, I think it's one of the pillars that we should be looking at to see how we can address it. And if we are going to trade, I mean, most of our products that you see on the market, almost all these products come from the agri side. And if we are going to do trading, most of these products might be crossing our borders to and fro. So I'm hoping this all that we put together, we'll be able to come out with certain policy directions that we will recommend to policymakers when they are taking their decisions, that highly consider the agri side into whatever decisions that we are taking. So I wouldn't talk too much. So all of you, welcome. and then let's have the discussion. And then after this, a report will be produced, and then everybody will have copies. So Angela, thank you so much for agreeing to moderate alongside Kuku.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wisdom Donko, President of AODIRF. We are now going to switch over to Mr. Abebe, Dr. Abebe Haile Gabriel. Nous allons donc donner le micro à Dr. Abebe Haile Gabriel, représentant de la FAO en Afrique, avec notre discours d'ouverture. Dr. Abebe Haile Gabriel, UNFAO representative for Africa. He is a national of Ethiopia with more than 30 years of extensive experience in strategic leadership and management in complex environments at national, sub-regional, and regional levels, focused on agricultural and rural development in Africa. Mr. Haile Gabriel joined FAO in 2015 to serve as Deputy Regional Representative for Africa and Representative to Ghana, and since 2017 as the Regional Program Leader for Africa, during which time he played a lead role in refocusing and aligning FAO's regional initiatives and strategic programs in Africa with the priorities espoused by key national and regional partners for improved program delivery. Dr. Abebe Haile Gabriel, we are extremely happy to have you on board. If you are indeed online, kindly unmute yourself and share with us your keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, colleagues, it's a pleasure for me to note that my former colleague and brother Mokhtar is around. Mokhtar Yedlai, if you are there, my greetings to you. My greetings to you all. I wish to congratulate the partners of the forum for organizing this webinar on Africa digitalization, trade in agriculture and nutrition, and thank them for inviting me to make this keynote address. FAO promotes sustainable agri-food systems transformation. And naturally, such an approach should be inclusive of all the actors and stakeholders along the food supply chain. I believe there can be no better demonstration of the imperatives for inclusiveness than the subject of digitalization for agriculture, trade, and nutrition. In Africa's case, we're thinking about the millions of small producers of crops, livestock, fish, forestry, processors, traders, informal operators, consumers, women and men, the youth, who must be supported to organize their businesses in a competitive manner for them to thrive in an increasingly interconnected global economic order. What is needed in Africa to achieve the Africa we want is accelerated pace and impactful change and transformation. So both the speed of change as well as its magnitude are crucial, because Africa is starting from low levels of investment and productivity, high levels of vulnerability to shocks, low level of interconnectedness, among others. Digitalization presents huge and real opportunities for those actors within the agriculture and food value chains. It can help optimize resource management and facilitate informed decision-making throughout the system, functioning in real time, driven by data, while tracing and coordinating value chains at the most detailed level, which in turn also contributes towards food safety by building trust and promoting transparency. This can support the implementation of standards and labeling that provide information to consumers on environmental and social dimensions of production. It can assist in addressing some of the market failures and facilitate integration of value chain actors by lowering information and transaction costs, promoting a more productive, resilient, sustainable, and transparent food system. It is not just a wish list. It's already happening. The widespread of mobile technologies, remote sensing services, and distributed computing are already improving smallholders' access to information, inputs, markets, financing, and training. It can promote financial inclusion through better reaching of millions of value chain actors, including smallholder farmers, many of whom were previously considered uninsurable, by allowing financial institutions to enter rural markets without establishing a costly physical presence. It can offer great opportunities for young people and can incite educated youth and women to remain in or return to rural areas. In sub-Saharan Africa, over 230 million jobs will require digital skills by 2030, resulting in almost 650 million training opportunities. This can transform rural areas into more attractive places to live and work. It can promote intra-Africa trade in food and agriculture and help reduce trade bottlenecks such as non-tariff barriers, which contribute to high levels of informality as observed in many African countries. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed the potential of digital technologies in improving the functioning of agri-food markets. Restrictions on movements to contain the spread of the virus generated a dramatic increase in the demand for online food shopping and home delivery services in some countries. So opportunities and possibilities for leapfrogging are there. However, the operating and business environment is quite a rough terrain, which makes competitiveness a daunting task for many in Africa. Africa has the lowest internet penetration. Only 28% of the population were estimated to have had access to the internet in 2019. Although connectivity has improved over time, a significant digital gap remains across countries and population, between urban and rural, between men and women, and so on. In sub-Saharan Africa, 25% fewer women use the internet than men. In Niger, for example, only 0.6% of rural women use the internet. These anomalies could be ascribed to three interrelated reasons. First is the infrastructure deficits. Levels of infrastructure and connectivity determine the use of internet and mobile and social networks among agriculture food supply actors. We can look at mobile subscriptions, network coverage, internet access, and electricity supply, for example. Second is affordability issues. The prohibitively high cost attached to it. Available data shows that the three countries with the most expensive mobile data per 1 GB worldwide are all in Africa. Third is related to the educational attainments in terms of literacy levels, ICT education, and institutional support, which determine digital skills among the rural population, and a culture which encourages digital entrepreneurship and innovation. These factors tend to increase the risk of further exclusion of several agri-food value chain actors from an increasingly digitalized economy, unless, of course, they are addressed through deliberate interventions. The Continental Free Trade Area is an opportunity to promote trade digitalization and support achieving a digital single agricultural market for Africa in a number of ways. It can help reduce trade costs and support the implementation of trade facilitation measures to expedite the movement of food and other critical supplies across borders. For example, e-certification can reduce lengthy and costly official clearance processes, such as inspection certificates required by food authorities. This is even more crucial for landlocked countries who face the constraints of limited trade facilitation measures, including burdensome customs formalities. It can facilitate more efficient and accessible trade finance through addressing some of the inherent inefficiencies. According to some estimates, digital innovations can reduce the operating costs in trade finance by up to 60 to 80%. E-payment is an important enabler of trade. It can reduce security risks and costs of handling cash. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, the first continent-wide digital payment system, which is focused on facilitating payments for goods and services in intra-Africa trade in African currencies within the framework of the AfCFTA, is an important development in this regard. There exists a lot of digital technology initiatives in Africa that can be tapped into for improving the conduct and performance of the agriculture food systems in the framework of AfCFTA. To mention just few, digital e-commerce platforms, such as the Wild Organics in South Africa, the Twiga Foods in Kenya, and an e-commerce platform in Senegal. Mobile applications providing price information to farmers, such as the M-Farm application in Kenya. Advisory services through mobile applications, such as the Isoko application based in Ghana, which presently operates in 10 African countries, reportedly connecting over 1 million farmers to essential services. Digital financial services, such as the Agrotech SmartX mobile application, also here in Ghana. International bulk agriculture commodity trading using blockchain, such as the ADM, Bunge, Argil, COFCO, LDC, and Glencore Agriculture, who partnered to develop a blockchain-based prototype for international bulk agriculture commodity trading. This technology could fundamentally change trade practices and reduce, modify, or entirely eliminate the need for a number of intermediary services along agri-food value chains. The electronic corridor trip monitoring system in COMESA, Eastern Africa Community, and SADC, which enables cross-border operators and law enforcement agencies to track movements against pre-approved route plans. Payment systems such as the SADC Payment Integration System and EAC Payment and Settlement Systems Integration Project, and more recently also at the continental level, what I've mentioned earlier, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. Solutions enabling facilitated access to trade information and market intelligence, which are crucial to ensure that traders had reliable access to all the information needed in order to plan and carry out trade transactions. In recognition of the urgent need for a variety of information resources, the African Union is establishing the African Trade Observatory as a key pillar of the AfCFTA. Enhancement of food control systems and standards. The newly established online non-tariff barriers, reporting, monitoring, and eliminating mechanism would help to monitor and eliminate non-tariff barriers. The use of the electronic SPS certificates, such as the e-phytosanitary platform of IPPC, facilitates the issue and exchange electronically of those certificates and promote more efficient and paperless food control systems. FAO assists the efforts of member countries and partners to advance digital agriculture through a number of interrelated ways. Through enhancing delivery, through digital innovations, including both emerging technologies and accessible digital tools. Also strengthening capacities of agriculture and food value chains actors to contribute effectively to the digitalization of agri-food systems, considering potential risk and opportunities. To mention some of the examples, FAO and Google recently launched new big data tool for all called Hand-in-Hand Geospatial Platform. I can also mention the digital technologies for trade and food safety, which is part of FAO's COVID-19 response and recovery program. The smartphone app known as FAMUS, the Fall Army War Monitoring and Early Warning System, a key tool available in 29 languages that channels valuable real-time and field-level information about the pest's location and spread to a global data platform every 2 hours, while also giving smallholder farmers specific tips on how to cope with and contrast infestations. This was developed in collaboration with Pennsylvania State University, among others. In conclusion, deliberate investment in infrastructure and in skills development will be required for improved access and affordability of digital services to support the agri-food transformation agenda. Thank you for your attention. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ababy Haley Gabriel. We had indeed a great keynote address which you made, which I think opens the program in a way that has to be open, because it lays the foundation for all the questions that are going to be answered later on by my co-moderator, Mr. Kweku Antwi. For the Francophones who are following us, I will just summarize what this great man said. Premièrement, un grand merci à tous les partenaires et aux collaborateurs qui ont permis d'organiser cette conférence virtuelle. L'Afrique possède des millions de producteurs dans les secteurs formels et informels, ainsi qu'une population vibrante en quête d'opportunités de croissance économique. La numérisation offre plusieurs atouts, et bien sûr, grâce au progrès de la technologie dans le secteur de la télécommunication, par exemple, le commerce en Afrique connaît un développement. Par contre, dans quelques années, on comptera probablement 270 millions d'emplois en Afrique qui feront tous recours à la numérisation, ce qui représente 650 millions d'opportunités pour conduire des stages et des formations, un meilleur accès à l'Internet donc, aux modes de paiement électronique, aux collectes de données et bien d'autres choses encore permettront la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine de faire un plus gros travail sur le continent. Elle existe en effet pour exécuter l'agenda 2063 dans les plus brefs délais. Thank you very much. We are going to switch to now to the rest of our program. We're going to have a presentation from GODAN, a 15-minute presentation. So I will just leave the floor to our host here to carry on the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to the organizers and my distinguished colleagues that are sharing their thoughts with us this morning. I was asked first to prepare a presentation having to do with economic integration. I did that, but I gave it a twist looking at the Africa that we want, which is beyond economic integration per se, that being only a tool to achieve it. So I looked at how we can work together better to maximize the potential of Africa, especially in sectors that are very important for its economic development, namely agriculture being sector number one in terms of employment, contribution to GDP and so on, but also factoring in the context that we're in right now, which has to do with the pandemic, among other things, and all the cascade of consequences that it has on our respective economies. And finally, I will share with you a few suggestions or recommendations as to how we can make the best out of the current situation that we have here. So I'll try sharing my screen. I hope this will work. I think I need to be made the host so that I can share the screen. So I'm going to ask my assistant to please make me the host. Sorry for the inconvenience, just 1 second. Okay, there I think it should work. All right. Very good. OK. Donc, comme je le disais, je vais essayer de partager un petit peu avec vous quelques pensées que j'ai eues sur comment est-ce qu'on peut faire en sorte de maximiser le potentiel qu'on a en Afrique, le potentiel largement inexploité jusqu'ici, si on peut dire, surtout dans le secteur agricole, et tenant compte, bien sûr, de la pandémie actuelle et d'autres contraintes sur lesquelles on vit. So, I'll just go on with the presentation here. So as I just pointed out, it's a good thing to talk about economics, economic integration, but we have to maybe zoom on where the greatest impact can be done. And it appears that agriculture is certainly it. Having in mind that more than 60% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa defines itself as smallholder farmers. almost 1/4 of the GDP coming from agriculture. But most important, that Africa can produce 2 or maybe 3 times what it produces now in terms of cereals, grains, livestock, and horticulture, if we just take the means to make it happen. So we'll just talk about that. But the key, of course, has to do with working together. That's the key element. Et donc, c'est pour ça que l'importance de l'agriculture est si grande en termes de développement économique de l'Afrique, puisque 60% de la population de l'Afrique subsaharienne se définit comme un petit agriculteur, et près du quart du GDP du sous-continent vient de l'agriculture. Et surtout, le potentiel immense que le continent a de pouvoir produire jusqu'à 2 ou 3 fois sa production actuelle. Now the context, of course, the pandemic. So how can we avoid that one? Because it's everywhere. If it was only that, it would be one thing to tackle, but we also have 2 other challenges at the same time. Global warming, which is affecting all of us in terms of extreme weather events, but are also affecting agriculture directly. Demographics, the world's population is increasing by quite a bit, and within 100 years, the world's population will have increased by 50%. So, which means 50% more people to be fed, basically, and to participate in the economic life of our countries. L'effet du réchauffement climatique sur l'agriculture est très important. As we can see here, depending how much global warming affects us, you can see the impact that this will have on agriculture. I'll just focus on 2 degrees Celsius, which is the goal. In fact, we're aiming at the maximum 1.5 degrees increase over the what it was at the end of the last century. It does look more and more likely like the world is heading towards 2 degrees Celsius. 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature would affect the African maize production, which, as we know, is a key crop, could lead up to a reduction of almost 30%, or let's say 25% reduction in terms of maize production. So as you can see, it is quite a bit. It's not only in Africa, it's also in other countries. In India, for example, their wheat is one of the main crops, same kind of decrease. US maize, about a little bit more, 27% decrease, etc. Of course, if the world's temperature would go even further, then it would be a total disaster. Imagine if it was to reach 4 degrees Celsius, that means the production of maize in Africa would be almost reduced by half. In India, production of wheat would be reduced by 75%. So as you can see, global warming is a reality, and it's very important. Ça affecte l'agriculture de façon très marquée, surtout si on dépasse les 1,5% décidés par l'accord de Paris. On risque de se retrouver avec des réductions de production agricole de 25 jusqu'à 75%. Now, the second factor is demographics. As I mentioned, 50% more people on this planet within 100 years. 100-year span, so that's quite a lot more people to feed. But beyond that, an additional thing that we can notice is that just about everywhere, the world's populations are aging. See the average age of people in North America going from 37 to 41 years old, and etc. for other continents. Africa, we're starting with a very, very young population, so the average age is moving now from 19 to 25. So one can say, well, we still have some room there, having in mind that older populations are less productive and need the young ones to help them cope. But what these averages don't show, though, is that in Africa, the average age of the farming population is much older than that. In fact, as we speak now, the average age of farmers is 60 years old, so which is quite old and much less productive. So part of the challenge, as it shows here, is to attract the young people in this bracket to turn towards agriculture. So that's certainly one area that needs our encouragement. Donc, je mentionnais le vieillissement des populations qui crée un fardeau additionnel quant à la productivité agricole qui est requise un peu partout dans le monde. Mais surtout, je mentionnais le vieillissement des populations d'agriculteurs. En Afrique, l'âge moyen des agriculteurs est de 60 ans. Alors, il faut trouver une façon de motiver la jeunesse qu'on voit ici pour les encourager à s'investir dans l'agriculture. Now, the COVID itself. COVID is affecting food systems worldwide in three main areas: production, processing, and distribution. Production, especially in labor-intensive crops, namely fruits and vegetables, for example, where you need a lot of hand picking, for example, a lot of people to come and pick them. COVID led to a number of worker shortages, either because of the disease or because of restrictions in terms of movements of people. So that had a negative impact on the production of these highly nutritive crops. The processing also, we've all seen these major shutdowns in terms of the meat processing factories in particular, which also caused some shortages on one hand, because the meat that could not be processed would not reach the stores, and also led to food losses, because what could not be processed had just to be disposed of. So I'm thinking of eggs, milk, meat, and a number of other products. Distribution was also disrupted by the COVID-19, whereby the lack of trucks, interference with transport, again linked to roadblocks, curfews and whatnot, which slowed down the movement of food, especially perishables, who were very negatively affected by that. Plus other factors like packaging, things that we don't think about, but almost 50% of the food produced on average worldwide is consumed in institutions like restaurants, schools, hospitals, and the like. But with the closing of restaurants and schools, a lot of that food had no place to go. And you cannot just say, well, it should just be bought by the consumers, because packaging played a key role, whereby institutions normally buy in bulk and very large quantities. So their suppliers are just not equipped to sell in smaller quantities that normally you and I would buy at the grocery store or at the market. So the consequences are worker shortages, sporadic food product shortages. There's no shortage of food worldwide as we speak now, but there are intermittent shortages of various items, among other things because of hoarding, but also because of disruptions at one part or another of the system. And then simultaneously, which is a paradox, having food shortages and food losses at the same time, but it shows how much disruptive the COVID-19 has been. And as a result of these, food inflation, when there's less food circulating, costs go up. So that's what we see more or less worldwide. Donc les impacts du COVID ont affecté beaucoup la production, le processing, le traitement de la nourriture et la distribution, résultant des manques de main-d'œuvre, des pénuries intermittentes de différents produits et des pertes de nourriture aussi très importantes. Some food for thought. This year, it is foreseen that on average, the world GDP is going to go down by 5%. So one might say, well, so that's not that much. Well, it is a lot. And especially what is important is that it affects mostly the poor people. That is those that spend at least 70% of their income for food. So as the minute the food costs go up, they're the ones most directly affected and most severely. It is estimated that the world poverty this year is likely to go up, extreme poverty, that is, not just poverty in general, but extreme, those that are really at the bottom of the financial ladder, going up to 150 million people. So that is an extremely high number. What's also important is already climate change had started to have an impact on that, but the disruptions in food systems affecting especially very nutritious foods, fresh vegetables, animal protein, etc. It was very affected by the COVID-19, which leads in turn to a change in the way people feed themselves. They go for cheaper stuff, which is not necessarily as nutritive. So that leads to micronutrient deficiencies. A study was just made on that issue pertaining to Ethiopia, and that's exactly what it showed. So when you have micronutrient deficiencies, you're not as healthy as you should be. So you're less resistant to diseases, so you're more exposed to COVID, among other things. Then because of human nature, I guess when in times of uncertainty, we humans tend to hoard. Countries do the same because they're run by humans the same. So what we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw a number of countries, I could thank Kazakhstan as the first one, that decided to stop its exports of food so that it could increase its own national reserves. And as we know, Kazakhstan is a big wheat exporter. But it was followed by 20 other countries. So 21 countries worldwide stopped exporting food, or some of the food they would normally export, for a while. So that also contributed to food shortages and more disruptions. So all of this together, as I said, created shortages and also losses at the same time. It is estimated that this year, because of the COVID-19 in particular, food losses would increase by about 1/3. So just to put it in perspective, in the US alone, that means an additional $85 billion of food losses this year. And last but not least, what people don't realize is that all this food that is left to rot, thrown away, generates emissions, methane emissions, as it decomposes, which contributes very much to the global warming. As you know, methane is 32 times more damaging to the atmosphere than CO2 is. Donc, on voit que les conséquences du COVID affectent surtout les gens les plus vulnérables, les plus pauvres, ceux qui dépensent la majeure partie de leur avoir sur la nourriture. Comme ils n'arrivent plus à payer les prix supplémentaires qu'on voit, ils se penchent vers de la nourriture moins bonne. Donc, ils deviennent moins bien alimentés, donc ça les rend plus vulnérables au COVID et à d'autres maladies. Now, the good news is that if you look at the first years of the mid-decade goals, the ones before the SDGs that we're looking at now, there was a global success, you could say, in terms of reducing the prevalence of undernourishment, basically by half during the year of the mid-decade goals. So everybody was very happy. They thought, great, we're in business, so the trend continues this way. In just a few years, we're going to be down to zero. Ça, c'était l'optique optimiste que les gens avaient. On voyait que durant la période des mid-decade goals, la prévalence de la malnutrition a été réduite pratiquement de moitié. Alors les gens, beaucoup ont pensé que on n'a qu'à continuer dans la même ligne et on va éliminer le problème d'ici encore 15 ans. Malheureusement, unfortunately, that's not quite what happened. What we saw is that this nice progress that you saw up to 2013, 2014 really brought down the number of malnourished people quite significantly. So from 950 million or so to a little less than 800 million. Unfortunately, after 2014, the numbers started to creep up due to a number of factors, including the demographics, because we're trying to, it's like trying to fill up a bucket with a hole in it. So as much as we're making progress, there's more people coming in, so we have to accelerate more, and we have not been very successful in doing that. Now, more alarming, this year, see, this ends in 2017. This year alone, because of the pandemic, there's a risk that up to 150 million people could go back in the malnourished category, which means that we would lose, if that happens, we would lose everything that we've achieved basically since 2000, so over the last 20 years. So we have to really take this seriously and see what we can do, among other things, by sharing knowledge about it, data, and harmonizing our policies, hence the goal of economic integration. Donc, comme on le voit, la malnutrition était en forte diminution jusqu'en 2014. Malheureusement, depuis, la courbe est à la hausse et on prévoit même que cette année, la pire à cause de la pandémie, on a possiblement jusqu'à 150 millions de personnes qui risquent de retomber dans le groupe des gens sous-alimentés. Donc, ce qui ferait perdre tout le progrès qu'on a réussi à atteindre depuis l'année 2000. Alors, il faut vraiment se pencher là-dessus. Now, what should we do? To make sure everybody's fed, we should increase productivity at least as fast as the population level increases. So in order to do that, we have to increase, according to the GAP report, we have to increase food production at a rate of 1.75% per year since 2000, basically up to 2050. Unfortunately, worldwide, and this is an average again, we're doing 1.72. So what that means is that as time goes by, the gap between the food we need to produce and the food we are producing increases. So therefore, we're less and less good at feeding our populations. This is especially true in low-income countries where the productivity or the output improvement is only 1.5%, so quite significantly below the 1.75 that we need. So that means that developing countries are more and more affected by pressure on malnutrition. Donc, comme on le voit, on arrive de moins en moins à produire, à augmenter la productivité agricole comme il le faudrait pour suivre l'augmentation des populations. Il y a un écart entre les deux qui grandit de plus en plus, surtout dans les pays en voie de développement. Alors, c'est là-dessus qu'il faut se pencher. Now, not everything is bad. There's some good news also. The good news are that there's an incredible potential, especially in Africa, in terms of increasing food productivity. Yeah, I'm sorry, somebody should mute his or her microphone. There's a bit of background noise. Comme on le disait tout à l'heure, on peut plus que doubler, presque tripler la production agricole en Afrique, mais à condition qu'on s'y prenne bien. Donc, on regarde sur les domaines où on peut augmenter davantage. So, generally, when people think, okay, to increase food production, we need to remove the forest and basically it would be at the expense of the environment. Well, this shows it's not the case. If you just look at all the yield improvement that can be done, you can see that 75% or 70% of all the improvement that we're looking for, which is rated as 815 in terms of score, in terms of score, but the most of it comes from yield improvement. So you have, which can allow us to gain this 320 plus 350. So all of this can be just by improving the way we produce using the same land that we use now. Land expansion per se is just a small amount of additional production that can be generated. If we also expand the land with improved agricultural methods, that would be a bit more, but it still is very marginal compared to the improving the yields of current production. And then, of course, post-harvest loss reduction is another area where we can gain. So, donc, comme je le disais, il y a beaucoup d'endroits où on peut travailler pour améliorer la productivité agricole, mais l'endroit où on peut faire le plus de progrès, c'est au niveau d'une meilleure exploitation des terres que l'on exploite actuellement, où on peut pratiquement retrouver dans ces deux colonnes le 3/4 de l'amélioration qui est possible dans les rendements agricoles en Afrique. L'expansion des terres agricoles, c'est presque marginal, ce n'est qu'un tout petit morceau. Donc, c'est vraiment, il faut se pencher sur ce qu'on peut faire pour améliorer la productivité agricole sur les terres existantes et en même temps réduire aussi les pertes. So, just to factor in one word on the food waste, which is also, because it's one thing to try to produce more, but at the same time, if we can reduce what we lose, we also gain in many ways. So these are just some figures I got from FAO, which shows that right now, this shows the number of calories wasted per person per day in each of these regions. As we know, normally humans need around 2,000 calories per day for normal feeding. Now, in terms of food waste, the worst culprits, of course, are in North America and Oceania to some extent, where we waste 1.5 thousand calories per person per day, every single day. Now, other regions waste less, but they still waste quite a lot. Like if we look at sub-Saharan Africa, we waste 545 calories per person per day, which one could say in itself should be enough to compensate for the malnutrition we have on the continent. But of course, we cannot eliminate 100% of the waste, but we can eliminate many, especially if we look at the causes of this, which in Africa is mostly because of infrastructure problems, production, storage, transport, where food gets damaged, contaminated or wasted along the way. So very important. Now, let's talk economics a little bit. When we talk about economic integration and intégration économique, it means harmonizing our policies, working together to keep track of the cost and the volumes and the qualities of goods that move around whether it is within national, regional, or international scheme. What we see here is that I'm looking at fertilizers, because fertilizers is one of the key. It is said that in Africa, the use of fertilizers compared to other countries is 1/6, some say up to 1/8 of what it should be. So using more fertilizers is one of the keys to improve agricultural production in Africa. Donc la production agricole en Afrique est très dépendante des engrais qui sont très peu utilisés. Donc l'augmentation de l'usage des engrais est un élément clé de l'augmentation de la productivité. However, the costs what we see here is that the markups on the cost of fertilizer arriving at the port are up to 45% because of these additional charges, which is...
hello, Andre, sorry to interrupt a bit.
Okay.
We were supposed to have the presentation for 15 minutes, and the next presenter comes so we can continue. So, okay. Because we are a bit time constrained for the next presenter, so I was wondering how we can transition the two. Yes.
Well, let me just dive to the conclusion, if I may. I'm sorry, because I tried to do it in both languages, and of course that added a bit of time there. But let me just dive to the conclusion on this slide, and I'll go to the
yes.
Yeah. So as you can see, by harmonizing...
All right, great, thank you.
Okay. By harmonizing our policies, our procedures, we can contribute significantly, and by working together to reduce these costs, so that we can reduce the cost of fertilizers, but also of other inputs that are required. But for this, we need data. So, of course, and this was just an illustration as to the investments that countries are doing on IT and data management. And if we compare, let's say, Europe, which is the most advanced, Europe and North America, they have improved. See, the darker is 2019 compared to 18. They reach now 70% of their computerization, digitalization potential. Yet in Sub-Saharan Africa, we're still at 34%, so by about half. The good news is that we're the region that has increased the most compared to others, but still we have a long way to go. So that's certainly one area in which we should invest. Now, I'll just try to go straight to the conclusion, the recommendations. The recommendation is that countries need to work together to streamline distribution processes, to factor in just ongoing systems, as well as within the context of the pandemic reaction or response, to streamline food movements and population movements to support the food systems. We need to work on facilitating finance, whether it is in terms of producers, importers, processors. We need to improve also facilities for the food to flow. So it again has a lot to do with infrastructure, roads, storage areas, cold chain. We need then to better look at who are the buyers and how we can make them buy more, who consumes, and how we can influence consumers so that they consume more nutritive food. And finally, we need to address all obstacles to the stimulation of the agriculture as an industry, as a market. So I'm sorry, this is a bit fast, but as it will be recorded, I assume the presentation will be available for those who want to take a look at it. So sorry about that. I hope it was useful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Andre. Thank you so much for the presentation. Hold on for me a bit, Angela.
Yes, please.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
I'll just give it to you, and so that you can be able to, how good are we with your time?
I'm okay. It's a fairly short presentation, so I think I'll be able to do this.
All right. So, our next presenter, we're kind of merging the sections. Our next presenter is Paul Bartel from Sever, West Africa, and he's a data analyst, and he's going to give us a presentation. He has a clashing of timelines or events. So we'll give him the opportunity to be able to present to us. So the floor is yours, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see, I'll try to get this on here.
Anyone who's not speaking has to mute the microphone, please, so that Mr. Paul Bartel can go ahead very smoothly. Thank you.
I'm trying to present here. Just a moment.
Okay.
I think that I need to be
J'ai pas
provided.
saisi vraiment.
Okay.
Oui, et le monsieur t'a dit qu'il n'y a pas de correspondance qu'on donne.
Monsieur Koussi Amessinou, veuillez s'il vous plaît
Mais dans notre cas, il n'y a pas d'avis
fermer
favorable.
votre micro. Merci. Monsieur Koussi Amessinou, veuillez s'il vous plaît éteindre votre micro. Merci.
I think I'm just about there. Can you see my screen? No.
No, we can't see.
Okay, just a moment. Excuse me for a second here. I may just have to do this. I may just have to do this without.
Okay, your screen is up now.
Okay. Can you see the entire screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm Paul Bartel. I am the Science and Data Lead for Severe West Africa. Severe is a global effort by USAID and NASA, a joint partnership, but we benefit from having
Yes, we
5
can see
hubs
the screen.
across. Yes.
Can we all see?
Cool. Okay. We have 5, we've had 5 hubs, 2 of which are in Africa. One is based at the RCMRD in Nairobi, and the second is based at Agromet in Niamey. And I'm speaking to you from Niamey. So you'll excuse me for not having projected my face, because we are always suffering a problem from bandwidth issues and poor connectivity. I would say that Severe West Africa addresses several of the areas that we have discussed previously, that the previous presenters presented, in terms of our support to the use of remote sensing in the fields of agriculture, land use, environmental services, food and nutrition, water and disasters, and climate services. But I won't dwell on that today. Instead, I'd like to describe a little bit of the road ahead, in the sense of obstacles that have been presented in increasing the use of digitization and information in Africa. One is a tendency towards having fee for services, in the sense of fee for having to depend on cost recovery for obtaining data, when in fact, as the world moves forward, it's the services that are provided that use those data that are the most profitable. And making information free and open encourages a tremendous growth in the IT sector, but also this affects commerce as in general. The second is a need to build confidence in cloud solutions in terms of data storage, access, and computing. There's a tendency, shift in, let's say there's a shift going on in terms of the culture that possession of data does not increase necessarily one's currency, but actually providing data and enabling others to use those data and information allows greater growth in the sector. The second issue is, which I'll dwell on with a little more detail, is that these cloud-based application processes require improved internet bandwidth and stability of internet connectivity. Some of these issues can be achieved through a greater level of interoperable standards in terms of data, and also the building of a culture of mutual exchange and support in the use of geospatial and internet data. So I'll focus primarily on internet constraints. And these constraints are basically divided between cost, speed, and reliability. And I have several brief graphics that demonstrate this, focusing primarily on West Africa, but not entirely exclusive to West Africa. The first is the real cost of internet. If you look at the monthly income per capita of the various countries and the percentage of that income that's based on internet access, you see the United States, in this case, as an example, is it's a very small portion of per capita income that's expended in terms of internet access. Other countries are considerably higher, for example, Botswana, Cote d'Ivoire. But as you look at the West African states, you see countries such as Niger, Guinea-Bissau, and Chad, that the access to the internet is exorbitantly high in terms of per capita income. And this is a key issue as we move forward. The second is internet speeds. If you look at higher income countries such as Singapore, Sweden, and the United States, you could almost say that internet access is instantaneous. Cote d'Ivoire is competitive in that area, but as you move down to the lower part of the scale, you see that the amount of time to download 5 gigabytes of data, which represents, let's say, a movie, extends into from 9 to 24 hours to download those data. And this is a critical issue when we seek to use data more and more for analytics. So you have a problem with cost and a problem with speed, and also interruptibility. So the stability of the platform. So for example, while I was listening to the previous presenters, my internet was interrupted 5 times. My electricity went off twice. And so this is a basic infrastructure issue if we were going to really see Africa come into the digital world. So let me focus now on an information culture. As Andre mentioned previously, open science is a key avenue for this in terms of providing, having open data, or at least open access to data that analytics and software are primarily open source, that the methodology is exchanged openly, and that educational resources are exchanged openly. In the case of Severe, we provide all of our data through geoportals. We try to focus on open source software solutions as much as possible. Our methodology, including algorithms, are openly available, and these are done through a series of geoportals. We also provide open access to the educational resources. So we carry on training about 10 to 15 different training courses every year, and all of those materials are posted online. In a more general sense, we as a group need to encourage the establishment of national data infrastructures. We should begin embracing citizen science so that the general population can be engaged in the same types of data collection and data analysis as the scientists. I would say another area, and this is really encouraging in West Africa, is encouraging the growth of development hubs so that locally developed solutions can address local problems, but that those solutions are widely available to others. Further, one of the issues in terms of cost to access of internet, but also cost to cloud computing, can be encouraged through greater competition among service providers, so that the larger the market of providers is, the more incentive there is to lower cost and increase quality. And finally, this is all buttressed by a positive policy environment at the national and regional levels. Let me advance. Sorry. So there are certain trends to capture. New technologies and information dissemination platforms are growing daily. Cloud solutions are more readily available, and access to applications are more available on the cloud. As you see, I'm using PowerPoint. This PowerPoint is provided on the cloud. And so this offers two contradictory factors. One is it's more available, but secondly, rather than paying once and obtaining the software, regardless of updates, it requires that people begin to pay subscriptions. And so if we have a subscription-based paradigm that takes over software, it's going to pose a problem here in Africa. First, the ability to pay in terms of having the money to pay for this. And secondly, the ability to pay in terms of having the facility to pay for this. And finally, we see a plethora of new sensors coming on board. You wear them on your wrist, you carry them in your pocket. They're increasingly present in your automobile, and also our ability to embrace citizen science so that the local population itself can begin providing data and informing the science that will drive the future. And with that, I would like to thank you. I can very briefly provide a résumé en français if I have time. La première partie, c'est il y a certains obstacles qui sont présentés pour l'intégration les facteurs digitaux dans les progrès. Premièrement, il y a certaines contraintes qui existent dans l'accès d'Internet. C'est les coûts d'accès, les vitesses de la bande passante et la fiabilité du réseau d'Internet. Et j'ai montré quelques instants d'exemples de le coût par rapport à l'engrais mensuel par personne. Et aussi les manques de vitesse dans les zones d'Afrique de l'Ouest pour télécharger des données. Enfin, je dis que les sciences ouvertes, c'est une avenue pour adresser cette situation. Et aussi, il y a certaines tendances pour capter, pour adresser et adresser les contraintes. C'est la diffusion d'informations, les nouvelles technologies, les nouveaux sensors et de capter les sciences, je ne sais pas exactement, citizen science, sciences des citoyens, disons, et aussi les solutions sur le cloud. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Paul Bartel, responsable des données pour la branche d'Afrique de l'Ouest à Servir, qui nous partageait sa présentation depuis Niamey, une présentation qu'il a bien sûr résumée en français pour tous les francophones qui nous suivent aujourd'hui. Sur ce, je laisse la parole à notre co-modérateur, Monsieur Kweku Antwi, qui échangera avec nos invités en anglais. Je ferai donc un résumé de chaque question et réponse en français pour nos auditeurs et auditrices francophones. So I leave the floor to Mr. Kweku Antwi, my co-moderator for the day, for him to go through the Q&A, the panel with our speakers. The panel will be in English. I will provide short summaries of questions and answers. Mr. Kweku Antwi, please take the floor. And for every question that he asks in English, I will translate it in French, and then I will also provide a summary of what the speaker says. Thank you.
Hello, Angela. Kweku was disconnected. He's trying to log in. So the host should allow him in.
All right. So let's see who is the host. Whoever is the host of this
I believe I'm
program.
the host here. I
Okay.
have to give up my host.
Yes, please do so.
If I can figure out how to do this, sorry.
Just click on my name, for example, and you'll have that.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Excellent. So let's
I'm
get
doing
Mr.
that,
Kweku
Andre.
Antwi back very soon.
Kweku. Should I give Kweku back?
No,
Okay.
no, get,
Yes, please.
yeah, oh yeah, well.
Kweku, where are you?
We're going to have Mr. Kweku Antwi back
Kweku would
very, very
on
soon.
the top of the list of participants. That's where you'd see him,
Okay.
maybe other people waiting. So just let them in.
Sorry. I'm trying to regain my list here.
Pas de souci.
Just click to
Alors, en ce moment, on attend mon co-modérateur, M. Kweku Antwi, qui a été en fait, sans faire exprès, déconnecté de notre webinaire. Donc, il reviendra très prochainement. M. Paul Bartel essaie de retrouver M. Kweku Antwi dans la liste des participants afin de l'ajouter encore une fois à cette conférence virtuelle. Donc, nous allons très bientôt reprendre les discours. Juste un peu patienter.
yeah,
Entre-temps, si vous avez des questions, posez-les dans la messagerie, car il y aura une opportunité de faire des échanges avec le reste de nos invités. Donc, nous aurons très bientôt M. Kweku Antwi qui nous rejoindra. Il a été malheureusement déconnecté il y a quelque temps. Et ensuite, nous continuerons le programme avec des questions très pertinentes, des réponses dont nous avons tous hâte d'entendre. Et je ferai un petit sommaire en français pour nos auditeurs et auditrices francophones. Je vous rappelle, la messagerie est ouverte. Si vous voulez laisser des messages, faites-le maintenant, car nous aurons l'opportunité d'échanger un petit peu, même si on n'a effectivement pas beaucoup de temps. Mais entre-temps, nous avons eu de très, très bonnes présentations de la part de nos invités en ce moment. So we're just waiting again for Mr. Kweku Antwi to be back. Once he's back, he will take the lead, he will take the floor.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Angela. Our next presenter is Professor Dube presented already?
Come again?
It's Professor Dube. Has he presented already?
We've had Dr. Abebe, who made the keynote address. We've had Mr. André Laperrière, who made a presentation for GODAN, and then Mr. Paul Bartel.
Yes, so the next person is Professor Dube from McGill University. Hello, right. Professor Dube, are you online?
Let's see if we have Professor Laurette Dube from the McGill University in Canada. I hope you hear us, and I hope she's online. If she is, then please unmute yourself and take the floor. If not, we could indeed go to the next person to make a presentation.
Yeah, so we could, yes. In the absence of it, we can go to, we have someone standing in for Monsieur Mokhtar Yadli from the African Union. That's in the person of Moses Bayingana. Hello, Moses, are you there? Hello, Moses. From the African Union. Can you hear me? Wow. Okay. All right.
Seems okay. Do we have any issue whereby maybe some people are on the waiting list trying to log in?
Yes. So let me check in with that. Hello, hello, GODAN team. Are there any persons who are trying to log in who have not been let in?
No.
Please, let's check.
No, everybody's in.
Nobody.
Everybody's in. Oh, okay.
Nobody in the waiting room.
Nobody in the waiting room. Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
I think I'm going to hand over to Angela so that we introduce Lady Lissie, so she can also, we can go into that section and we can come back when Professor Dube and the rest are.
Definitely, we will.
Yes, thank you. Over to you, Angela.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Kweku. We will definitely cycle back on our other speakers. In the meantime, time to welcome Madame Lissie Equia Trede Cueno, a fellow Equia, from she's a global goals advocate and an award-winning consultant with over 17 years of experience in the development sector, specifically in the area of management and international business. She is a co-founder of the Agri-Business Value Chain Federation, ML Business Solutions Center, and Shea Naturals. She also doubles as a management consultant for Shinkafa Buni Rice Farmers Association, where she played a pivotal role in its formation in 2016. She recently won the most influential woman in business and government for the small and medium-scale enterprise sector for Ghana and West Africa during CEO Global Magazine Essays Pan-African Awards for 2019-2020. The big woman we have here, Madame Lissie Equia Trede Cueno de la Fédération du Business Agricole au Ghana, Please, the floor is yours. We are happy to have you. Thank you for your bright smiles right in this webinar session. Kindly take the floor.
Thank you, AAA. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Kwekuenchi. Yes, you've said it all. And well, I'm an African woman, and being here to represent Africa in the trade and digital platform in the thematic area of the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement and under the 2063 is a huge opportunity for me. It's a huge opportunity for me. So we are talking about the Africa we want. And we are talking about the speed of change and the magnitude of change central to the smallholder farmer, trade, digitalization, and these so many things come to mind. What are the opportunities there? What can we do to get to the place where we want to be in 2063? I'll talk about the smallholder farmer and project him within the context of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and Agenda 2063 and link it to other stakeholders and conclude for this presentation. The African, my previous speakers have given a lot of statistics on the thematic area in terms of trade and the smallholder farmer. All I see is opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. It was said by a previous speaker that the internet penetration is 28%. So what about the 72%? This is a great opportunity for internet service providers out there in the African diaspora to come to Africa and invest in the internet and ICT area so as to bring the 72% who are not part of the internet penetration into the system. And this is the basic foundation to propel digitalization and trade in order to reach this 2063 goal through the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement. We talk about the smallholder farmer and so many challenges in the cropping cycle, post-harvest losses, and all of those things mentioned by previous speakers. Let me take one thing. Let's talk about post-harvest loss reduction. How can digitization be used to reduce post-harvest loss reduction? Simple. Better market access for the smallholder farmer nationally, regionally, and internationally. Linking the farmer in Gambaga to the off-taker in Accra, to the off-taker somewhere in the ECOWAS sub-region. I'm talking within the context of Ghana. And linking him internationally. That is one thing that digital transformation can do for us. Another thing, yield improvement. We can talk about digital extension services and how we can use technology to improve yield improvement through ICT and with ease. And this can be done, this can be done because we lament over the fewer number of agri extension services or agri extension service officers in our different nations and in our different regions. There comes digital technology. Why don't we use digital extension services in providing information to the farmer in such a way that is through the smartphones, through animated videos, through different media channels, social media, so that the extension services can be provided in a better accelerated way and a better coverage strategy to the smallholder farmer. We're talking about food waste. Why don't we use the idea of JIT, just in time? The farmer knows his cropping cycle. He knows he's going to harvest from the November 28th. And so he starts to market his products through social media, nationally, regionally, internationally. And everybody knows that Alhaji Musa's cereals or his yams or his sweet potatoes are going to be ready from the 28th of November. What do? We link to Alhaji Musa because we know that his cereals are the best, and be able to trade, commodity trading, and to be able to reach him in such a manner through digital media. So Alhaji Musa can just advertise his tubers, he can advertise his cereals through Facebook, through Instagram, saying from the 28th of November, I have 1,500 bags of maize available. So he can disseminate this information through WhatsApp, he can disseminate this information through Facebook, and click, there's a buyer. Another thing, we're talking about regional beyond economic integration, economic integration, and we talk about the smallholder farmer. How are we empowering the smallholder farmer to take advantage of this beyond aid and beyond economic integration? Simple, digitalization comes in, e-governance comes in, e-commerce comes in, financial inclusion through e-services comes in. Several aspects of the business management ecosystem of the smallholder farmer comes into play, and digitization is the opportunity. The farmer is taught to keep his books better by his financial advisor or financial institution through digitization, through SMS, through messages that are sent to his phone from his financial advisor, from the bank, from the financial NGO, from other stakeholders who are interested in the profitability and the wealth of the farmer. And doesn't end there. We are talking about nutrition and how the smallholder farmer can give us nutritious food from farm to fork. Yes, we can educate this farmer on better treatment of his crops through messaging, through SMS, through several means of information sharing, through digitization. And these are simple tools we can use through the smartphone, through social media, and through several ways. We shouldn't say, yes, it's only 28% of people in the African continent have access to internet. Let's look at the opportunity and look at how we can pivot this opportunity through synergy. That is, internet service providers, digital marketers, other stakeholders within the farmers' ecosystem, being involved in the digital transformation of the farmers' business to propel trade and to bring forth the Agenda 2063 to the Africa Free Trade Continental Area, or the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Madam Philo Equia. Great points that you made with a lot of passion. I have to make a quick summary for our Francophone audiences. Madame Lissie Equia de Cueno demandait particulièrement, qu'est-ce que la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine signifie-t-elle pour les petits fermiers, pour les petits commerçants? Si 21,8% de la population africaine est connectée à l'Internet, qu'en est-il des 70% qui ne le sont pas? La numérisation apporterait des solutions donc, pour réduire le gaspillage alimentaire, par exemple, ou encore à travers les réseaux sociaux, le fermier sera capable de communiquer sa production avec ses clients. La numérisation aidera encore le fermier à mieux gérer ses finances et bien d'autres choses encore. Il y a effectivement un grand besoin d'adhérer à la numérisation dans les secteurs agricoles et de nutrition. Maintenant, nous allons voir si nous sommes donc en compagnie de professeur Laurette Dubé de l'Université McGill au Canada. Let's see if we are now in the company of Professor Laurette Dubé from the University of McGill in Canada. Madame Laurette Dubé, if you are around, we will be extremely happy. to hear you, so please unmute yourself and carry on. And if not, we will have to check if we have the representative for Mokta Yedali, Mr. Moses. If Mr. Moses is around, please take the floor. Otherwise, I will give the microphone back to my co-moderator for the day, Mr. Kweku Antwi, for him to carry on with the program. Before we wrap it up, we have just about 30 minutes to go before we wrap everything up. So we are hoping that we can do so and bring you the best of insights before we conclude the conference.
Okay. Is there any other representative from McGill, apart from Professor Dube? Okay.
I think Professor Dube is having some difficulties connecting. She's trying, so. Yeah,
okay, all right. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Andre. In the meantime, there are some very important points which have been made. We'll also be expecting your questions and your contributions. We would open the floor for that. There is a feature which says raise your hand, where we can be able to raise our hand to be able to be called upon to ask questions. Please, it's a blue hand. You can use that feature. We'll use that. In the meantime, I can see a lot of colleagues from all over Africa and also from international institutions. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much from our various stakeholders who have joined us for this very important webinar. Thank you for the various institutions who have been able to make time for this. We are so grateful for you to participate in our session today. Thank you so much. In the meantime, are there any questions any persons have so far? We can note them down so that we can give it to our panelists.
It seems like we have a few people that have unmuted their microphones. Are they ready to talk or to ask questions? I see Mr. Sani Ibrahim, I see Mr. Freddy Noma. But anyways, it's good to have faces that are regular with, our different GODAN, events, such as Mr. Jimson Olufuye from Nigeria. So yeah, and just to make a quick point about Mr. Paul Bartel and his presentation on the internet, I do remember that even during the AGDIC in 2019, he mentioned that the cost of the internet is more complex than customers understand. So today's presentation, I believe, has really shown and explained why the internet is so expensive for now in sub-Saharan Africa, and also not to speed. But then this is information that will be available after the program because we are recording this conference. So this is definitely something that a lot of people will have to look at and really understand why it's like this. In terms of competition, there is a sense of more competition lately, at least in Ghana, between Vodafone and MTN. But indeed, much more can be done. And one thing I would like to ask Mr. Paul Bartel, if he's still around, is how do you explain that downloading is way faster than uploading? So my personal experience, if I'm downloading something of 5 gig, first of all, chances are it won't go all the way. So I will have to use a downloading tool so that when it breaks, it can continue again. But then it might take maybe 5 to 10 hours. Uploading something of 5 gig is virtually impossible unless I break it down 1 gig maximum. So what makes downloading faster uploading? If there's anyone here who can answer this question, I think I would be very interested to understand. Seems like Mr. Paul Bartel is not with us anymore. He did say that his time was limited, issues with his internet and I think electricity. Let's see if we do have.
Do we have any questions on the floor? Yes, 1 or 2 questions. Will be great to hear from you. Any persons interested in asking any questions?
Yeah, hi.
Go ahead, please. Your name and where you're pitching in from.
Okay, how you doing, everybody?
Great.
Yeah, this is Jameson Olufuye from speaking from Abuja, Nigeria, and I want to extend greetings to everybody, Angela, Kwaku, Wisdom, and everyone. Yes, great event. And I really would like to appreciate all the presenters. Very, very qualitative content. Maybe I'm quite attempt to answer the question of Angela, but I have my own question. My question is with regard to the importance of policy. So I would like to ask the presenters, what kind of policy direction do you think we need to embrace to enhance agricultural output, especially with the effect of the COVID-19 and climate change? So what kind of policy direction, agricultural policy direction do you think or recommend that Africa should embrace even as we tackle climate change and respond to COVID-19 challenges? So maybe why you think about that? Well, Angela, the reason why maybe the issue with maybe download and upload speed, we have challenges there is with regard to the bandwidth actually. The bandwidth happens to be the analogy for that is the expanse of your road network. So if you have a 6-lane network, you can expect data to pass through compared to if you have a 2-lane road network. So even if you have a wide network, you still need to, it can still be metered with regard to, that brings about the issue of net neutrality. Can all people be allowed to just pass their data through the big network, or it has to be metered based on the rate or the data plan? So basically, do we have the infrastructure? So we need to have the infrastructure first. That is big roadway, comparable to a big roadway, maybe like 6-lane road network. And if we have a big infrastructure, big road network, we still have to now meter to know how much data needs to pass through and who has the right to pass through the fast lane and things like that. So there are a number of issues that are involved in that. But firstly is the issue of infrastructure. It needs to be really broad, and that's why we talk about broadband. And then after that, we now talk about say data plan, and then the cost as well. So that's where regulation comes in to ensure that prices are capped, so that those that have the infrastructure will not make too much money and things like that. I don't know if that explains anything, but I need the answer to my own question anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does answer my question. We have Madam Lissie de Cueno who wants to come in, so please do.
Okay, so to do with policy direction in terms of the plight of farmers and the COVID area and climate change, I think what should be done specifically is to direct attention to access to finance for farmers. There is the availability of funds, but how these farmers can access the finance is key. COVID came with lockdowns. So definitely market access was ruined with COVID. So several smallholder farmers or farmers generally are facing financial constraints. So there has to be interventions or policy directions that seek to cushion the financial status of farmers and to also project into the future so that in case there's not, touch wood, it shouldn't happen again. In case there's another pandemic, farmers should be catered for in such a way that even if there's a lockdown or even if there is constraints to market access, the farmer will not be so financially constrained as to affect the next cropping cycle. So that is one key thing. Climate change. There is the school of thought that says COVID is linked to climate change in terms of certain microorganisms that have been come out through the melting of glaciers or whatever it is. There's a school of thought that says that, and this climate change leads to several epidemics or diseases, potential epidemics or diseases, because certain microbes and other microscopic organisms have come into the food chain of the several animals in the sea, and it lines up to several food chains of mammals and so on and so forth, and comes to us as human beings. So we shouldn't see climate change as far-fetched. We should inculcate climate adaptation and mitigation strategies from the word go. We should come out with programs that educate farmers and several stakeholders, the ordinary or the everybody, to know more about climate smart strategies, climate mitigation and climate adaptation strategies, so as to prevent another COVID, so as to prevent another something that was not prepared for. So we should inculcate this into our programs, our outreach programs, in terms of educating the general public on climate smart, climate adaptation, climate mitigation strategies, and farmers are central to this. They should know that the soils are changing, weather is changing, so this is how we have to evolve to take care of the climate change. So the policy engagements from the government right down to the community should inculcate climate smart and climate adaptation strategies in the educational programs that go out to the general public. So I hope I've answered your question. Number one, access to finance, cushioning the farmer, and in case of further epidemics or anything that's unforeseen. Number two is educating more on climate smart and climate mitigation and climate adaptation strategies. I hope I've answered your question.
That's excellent presentation, Madam Lissie. I see Jimson smiling, but I think Andre is also up. So what we can do is bridge. Andre, you give a response, but in your response, I also like you to also share some of the ideas about initiatives by GODAN. And if Professor Dube is here, about the food convergence in terms of agriculture and nutrition to our audience, so that we can be able to broaden the other parts Madam Lucy has talked about in terms of the education policy aspects from the farmer side. Over to you, Andre.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kwaku. Well, indeed, the food convergence, FCI, as you're going to hear more and more of, has to do with the circular economy, whereby agriculture or food production has been in the past very much of a linear kind of enterprise, where you basically plant stuff, you grow it, people eat it, and that's the end of it. While what we're trying to do is to, through recycling or reusing, using byproducts and so on. We're trying to use agriculture as an input to itself, so to make it circular and grow like a snowball effect, if you will. That's what the FCI is all about, and GODAN is working very hard on this with many different partners around the world. We have over 1,200 partner organizations right now in our network. So looking at that from many different angles, having to do with ontologies, so to make sure that people refer to the same things in the same way, so interoperability of data, linking that to economics. I invite you to go to the godan.info website to hear more about this. But in response to the specific question on policies, GODAN is very much involved on policy issues with all of these organizations. There's a lot of work to be done there, but I just mentioned four, for example. One, data. In my presentation, I tried to show that really there's still a big gap in terms of access to technology in Africa. So we're about half where we should be, or where we would want to be able to compete with more developed economies. So more investments need to be done in there. So policies must be conducive to encourage startups and other internet and communication companies to help build the networks and develop it. And second, there's an element related to that, which has to do with gender. A study recently released by ITU shows that in the last 10 years or so, the gender gap in terms of technology access in sub-Saharan Africa has exploded, but in the wrong way. So instead of reducing the gap between female access to technology versus male access, it has expanded. So now if you're a male in sub-Saharan Africa, you're twice as likely to have access to technology than if you're a woman. This is very alarming, especially having in mind that in agriculture, over 70%, some countries 80% of all the agriculture-related jobs are held by women. Yep, they're the ones that have less access to technology, therefore to means to make it even more efficient. So that's one thing we need to correct. Other policies having to do with economic integration has to do with harmonization of our policies, harmonizations of our laws, our practices, our taxation and whatnot. Among other things, trying to eliminate or reduce food speculation, which is a phenomenon that is very common in Africa as well, where some people hold on to certain food stocks that they have and artificially pushing the price up in doing so. So working together, governments can have a big impact in reducing that. Reducing risk also for producers through crop insurance, among other things, is something that's becoming more and more popular, and rightfully so. It's one of the ways to reduce risk and therefore to stimulate investment in agriculture. Consumer choices can also be influenced. We were saying that now we're facing intermittent shortages of different types of food, but part of the response to that is for the populations to consume more locally, more seasonally, and to maybe reacquire some of the very nutritious food that we used to eat before, but that thanks to modern technology and so on have been a little bit forgotten. So many good experiences have been done in countries that have managed to improve the nutritive condition of their populations by steering their food choices, sometimes by implementing norms, limiting negative foods like sugar or salt, for example, or fat content. But you can also do the reverse and stimulate the production and the consumption of food that is much more nutritive. We have good examples of that from India and other places on our website. Finally, infrastructure, it was mentioned earlier. Infrastructure is, of course, internet, telecoms, but it's also storage facilities, cold chain, and routes to the main markets. So these are just some areas.
One point there, I see Dr. Omari, Dr. Rose, are you on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much. Are there any points apart from the agriculture and nutrition, coming from the scientific background? We're talking about the food systems. Any
Hello? Hello.
Hello, we are indeed able to hear you. Kindly go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've listened to all the presentations, and then the one from, is it Lucy? Yeah. So my concern is whether the farmers and the value chain actors are really able to use these ICT, facilities to enhance their businesses. We have a lot of apps, we have information on social media, text messages and all that. To what extent are the actors really using these facilities and benefiting from them to enhance their businesses? My question to Lucy.
Okay. Yes, we did say most of the farmers are above the age of 60 years. But at the same time, we have a lot of, a large percentage of the farmers, of the youth in the farming communities. And when you talk about youth and ICT, everybody knows what's happening. The youth are literate in terms of using ICT tools. So what is happening is that there's a problem. Yes, the 60-year-old or the 50-something-year-old being able to access information through the internet. But there's an opportunity. There's the youth around, there are the young people around who do not have work to do. Why don't we link them, synergy? Why don't we engage the community better so that the entire community hierarchy knows that Alhaji Musa needs to access information on A, B, C, D. So why don't we link him to Seidu, who is tech savvy on a smartphone, to help him access information better for the good of the community? Because if Alhaji Musa has an excellent cropping cycle and he's able to sell his produce well, he will be able to take care of his family better, and he won't need to be, in quotes, a burden on any community member. So why don't we work together and collaborate so that the youth in the rural communities or the youth in nearer to these the aged farmers are able to work with the farmers and teach them and make these information we are putting out through the ICT basic and in local languages and as graphical and as diagrammatic as possible, so that when Seidu is interpreting climatic data to Alhaji Musa, he'll just look at the cloud and it's gray and tell him on tomorrow the 8th at 11 a.m. the gray cloud means it's going to be cloudy, so it's honest on, yes, the animators, the ICT, the software engineers is honest on the entire stakeholder system to help the farmer access data or information better through ICT, through synergy, and through community engagement of the entire community hierarchy. That is part of the farmers' ecosystem. So that's what I have to say. Let's not look at it as a problem. Let's look at it as an opportunity to use community engagement, to involve the youth, to use better ICT media to be able to disseminate information to the smallholder farmer. Thank you.
Great, absolutely. Donc, comme Madame Lucie disait, inclure la jeunesse, inclure ceux qui comprennent très très bien la technologie pour aider nos fermiers beaucoup plus âgés, puisqu'effectivement, la plupart des fermiers en Afrique sont de la classe beaucoup plus âgée, donc 60 ans et plus. demander à un fermier de 60 ans de se mettre sur son ordinateur ou d'utiliser son téléphone ne sera pas forcément très bénéfique. Effectivement, engager les plus jeunes pour répondre à ces problèmes semble être une très bonne solution, comme Madame Lissie disait. So just summarizing your answer for our Francophone audiences, we are nearing the end of the program. We still don't have Madame Laurette Dube, Professor Laurette Dube, and Mr. Moses from the African Union as well. Mr. Kweku-Antwi, do you think there's a chance for us to have them on the program, or should we unfortunately wrap up without their intervention?
Yes,
unfortunately. Wisdom, are you saying something?
Yeah. Yes, I just got a text message from Moses. He's saying he's having difficulty in connecting.
Oh, okay. All right. Angela, I think we can give the floor to. I think there was one last question from Felicio. Felicio, did you have your hand raised up?
Yes, I wanted to ask a question, and I hope I can go ahead with it.
So you, since we are pressed with time, you can give a quick question, then we'll have a closing from our panel.
Okay.
So that we stay within the time.
My question is is in regards to the African Union Agenda 2063 under one of their framework, which is a comprehensive African agricultural development program. And this framework is being put out there to eliminate hunger and reduce poverty through economic growth and agricultural-led programs. So my question is, what has been done for youth like this, for a youth like me to be enticed to join agriculture? That's my question, I wanted to ask.
Very great question indeed.
Yeah, Lucy can take that or something like that, since she's the only person available now.
Karen Guy, hold on a bit. Karen Guy, do you want to make an input so that we can have a round of closing around? So Karen Guy is also from GODAN. He's an African rep. So Karen Guy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for that question on Agenda 2063. And anything to do with food security and the role of youth in agriculture, and that is one of the critical agendas of GODAN. We try to help governments to implement or formulate policies that interest the youth to get into agriculture by using technology. And as you know, one of the biggest challenges in Africa's agriculture is extension. So if we had the right infrastructure for delivery of knowledge to youths who are organized around farmer and farmer organizations, then it becomes easy to do that. And that is a model that GODAN has been evolving, that we call the Farm Hub. And youths are supported by their country initiatives, or even research organizations, or even academia, to come together and work jointly with the farmers so that they can deliver agricultural services. Now, in that hub, that is called the Farm Hub, there will also be technology as infrastructure, so that you can have access to Wi-Fi and other technology like MOOCs and e-learning initiatives that will enable them to actually find much more value coming to a support service to the agricultural value chain. So yes, there is a lot that GODAN is doing, and we actually are working with countries. We would actually be keen to engage with any country that seeks to see in what ways do we engage the youth so that we can address the comprehensive Africa agriculture program. Thank you.
And Jose.
Okay. All right, thank you, Karen, and thank you, Felicio. We're pressed a bit with time. Sorry for that, but pressed a bit with time. And what I'm going to do is just have a round. Then Angela will sum up for us, then we give a salute and we log off. So Madam Lucy, then Monsieur Andre, then Angela, and then we close off. Over to you.
Okay, so what I'll say is that, Felicio, why don't you take your destiny into your own hands? Don't wait for dates. There are a lot of initiatives going undertaken by different stakeholders, namely governments of different countries, international development organizations, private sector. But why don't you, as an individual, take your destiny into your own hands? You've heard about agribusiness, and you've heard that it's $1 trillion sector in 2030. Look at your skills as a person and fit yourself somewhere in the agricultural or agribusiness value chain digitally. So you could be a digital marketer, do it on Facebook. You could be skilled in any area, depending on your educational background. Use your digital skills to place yourself somewhere in the agricultural, agribusiness value chain, and the future is bright. You can be your own boss. The future is out there for you. Take your destiny into your own hands and go for it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
You're welcome, Andre.
Thank you very much, Kwaku. Thank you to the other guests. Yeah, indeed, I think this was a very rich discussion we've had this morning. I hope through the links that have been established today, the discussion can continue. There's a lot of work ahead of us, but there's a lot of potential also. So that's really what I take back from this discussion today. I think we underlined the right elements, mobilizing the youth to invest itself, to be better invested in agriculture, harmonizing policies, regulations within countries and between countries also, especially on the continent, working together, maybe pooling resources whenever required, whether it is in terms of developing infrastructure or purchasing fertilizers. So there's a broad range of things that can be done. Addressing the gender gap also, because it's across all, and women have such an important role to play, not just in agriculture and nutrition, but even beyond. So we need to continue to help our sisters acquire all the tools that will help them help us. Really, that's how it goes. So thanking everybody. I just end up with a query I just received, Kwaku, which is that some participants are asking whether they can have copies of the presentations that were made today. So if you can say a word about that, that would be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So we'll send the presentations through the email addresses you registered with, and we'll also make it available on our websites. The presentation will, when you go on the AODF, African Open Data and Internet Research Foundation website, and also link it onto the GODAN website so you can have access to it. And also the recording will also be made, the link will be made available to you so that you can have a relook and also share with the other colleagues. So yes, that's it for Andrea. And Angela?
Thank you, Mr. Kweku Antwi. I'll switch to French first and then I'll close in English. En effet, alors que la population africaine reste très jeune et que l'âge moyen des fermiers est de 50 ans et plus, c'est donc à la jeunesse africaine de s'investir dans le secteur agricole, de tendre la main aux générations plus âgées afin de les assister avec des solutions numériques pour une croissance économique. Moi, j'ai été très ravie d'être votre présentatrice aujourd'hui et co-modératrice avec M. Kweku Antwi. On se retrouvera très prochainement, je l'espère. Nous avons bien discuté sur le thème de la numérisation dans le secteur agricole et nutrition. Donc, pour moi, ça sera tout. Mon nom, c'est Angela Ekwa-Assante, alias Triple A, et vous trouvez sur les réseaux sociaux. So indeed, I was saying that whilst, the African population is very young and that the medium age for farmers is 50 years and more and above, it's up to Africa's youth to invest themselves in the sector of agriculture and nutrition for them to give a hand, lend a hand to the aging populations to assist them with digital solutions for the continent to keep growing. I was very pleased, I've been very pleased and honored to be your MC and co-moderator for the day. My name is Angela Ekuya Asante, aka Triple A, and it was a pleasure to do this with Coco, with Mr. Coco Antwi. Thank you. That's
fabulous, fabulous. So before we sign off, we also acknowledge Peter. Peter, who's been our rapporteur. The technical people are always in the background. They don't talk much, but
yes,
they are keeping it running. Peter, you sign off for us, please. Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so quick one, just the full report will be made available. Okay, I'm just going to do the key recommendations that we got from this section. So the first one says there's need to look at the agricultural trade, especially the food sector, critically if we are to succeed with Africa Freedom Continental Trade Agreement. And there was a recommendation as well that women and youth must be supported to thrive in the global digital trade. There is a mention of infrastructure deficit, connectivity and literacy issues, which was raised. Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement is an important opportunity to promote trade digitalization and integration, and as well to reduce finance cost as well. So there's also a recommendation that digitalization can change trade practices. So in Africa, and there's need to strengthen the capacity of agri value chain actors. So also recommendations that skills development and accessibility is very important in Africa. Also agriculture is important and it needs to be a priority, and appropriate attention needs to be directed to it. Africa could be the 2 or 3 times more productive if it intensifies its agricultural productivity. Then also recommendation came forth that reducing waste can lead to gain in value addition and increase in nutrition. Also, there is need in policy harmonization, processes and procedure towards digital trade integration and cost reduction. Also, countries need to work together to streamline distribution, facilitate finance, process and movement, and improve visibility. Also, there is need for stakeholder collaboration and community engagement in the use of ICT. Also, we see that internet is a constraint, such as call speeds and stability, that it affects the use of data analytics and the digitalization. We also see recommendation that there is need to build an information culture that encourage competition among several service providers. Also, there is need to capture new technology and information dissemination platform in Africa and creation of positive environment. Also, we see that there is opportunity for investment in internet service provision, especially for the diaspora. And also, the last one, there is need for better market for smallholder farmers and empowerment through digitalization. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you so much for having all of us. Thank you for joining us, and please be looking forward to more collaboration on having our digital forums. We'll be looking to have it very inclusive, and also language-wise, we'll be able to expand so that the conversations can go on. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good day. Bye-bye for now.
Yeah, thank you so much.